Happy Sunday, Houdat Nation, and a happy week 14 to our Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is doing well out there. We're dealing with schizophrenic, psychopathic weather pretty much all along the East Coast, or at least the Eastern time zone. I know is playing havoc on Brendan's sinuses, playing havoc on my sinuses. So you all have to bear with us. But with that said, welcome to the Week 14 Bayou Blitz pregame show. I am one of your co-hosts, Bob Rose of the Saints News Network and SI.com, and of course your Bayou Blitz. And joining me is Brendan Boylan. Happy Sunday to you, Brendan.
Yeah, you as well. We'll see if my sinuses let me get through this one in one piece, or if you'll see me kind of dart off screen and try to, take care of some of it. But yeah, like it's been in the 20s the last couple days, 30s maybe, if we've been lucky. And today's like 66. So my sinuses are like, what's going on, guys? Just like a lot of people are saying, what's going on with the Saints and the Giants, some key guys that were on the injury report throughout the week for both sides. One of the bigger notes was that Cesar Ruiz did travel with the team, and he did go through some walkthroughs yesterday. But he was entering the game as questionable with that concussion. Bob, do you have the injury report ready and available?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I do. Compliments of our own John Hendricks, a good friend to both of ours and a colleague as well. Today's Saints injury report, inactive report, Cesar Ruiz not on it. So Cesar Ruiz, Eric McCoy, and Lucas Patrick are all active. Brendan, this is the first time since week 3 on the third play of the game against the Philadelphia Eagles that the Saints have had their starting 5 offensive line intact. So that's big, especially going up against the 29th ranked New York Giants run defense. The rest of the inactive report, no surprises. Jordan Mims inactive, Mason Tipton inactive, rookie linebacker Jalen Ford inactive, rookie defensive tackle Christian Boyd inactive. Tano Passigno, the defensive end, and rookie wide receiver Bub Means, they're not officially listed on the inactive report, only because they were ruled out of today's game on Friday, and neither of them, Bub from injured reserve and Tano from the PUP list, physically unable to perform list, neither of them were activated. A player who is activated is Kendre Miller. So we will see him for only the 3rd time this year, if you can believe that. Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin, the wide receivers, were also officially signed to the active roster. Most likely the reason why Mason Tipton and Jordan Mims were deemed inactive. And, of course, 2 injured reserve moves that the team made late in the week, placing Taysom Hill on IR and offensive lineman Nick Saldivari.
Kendre Miller might be some of the bigger news of the week, being active for the first time. We kind of talked about it a little bit on Wednesday, how Jamal Williams has kind of found himself this season as a whole just completely uninvolved in the offense. So it was going to be nice to see if Kendre was coming back, to see what his potential role moving forward and into the next few years may be behind Alvin Kamara, if it becomes more of a split backfield as Kamara gets up in age, because it's a guy that we both liked coming in the draft, a guy that we both think has the ability to be a really good back in the league, both as a runner and a pass catcher, despite being a little bit bigger in size, not having the prototype kind of scat back type of body type, a little bit bigger, which helps him run between the tackles. All those things should absolutely help the Saints. But what's been the big issue? He's spent a lot of time hurt, or as Dennis Allen said early in the year, it's really hard to make the team when you're consistently not available or on the field. And that was way back in training camp, I think those comments came out. So all in all, some of the bigger news of the day. Looking at the Giants side, Bob, there was some chatter on who was going to be playing quarterback this week, and I think we have an answer.
We do. Drew Lock, unless something just changed at the last minute, Drew Lock is going to get the start over a healthy Tommy DeVito for the New York Giants today. And you mentioned the Giants are generally beat up. Malik Neighbors, the fantastic rookie wideout from LSU, has been dealing with a leg injury, and he is reportedly going to give it a go. He is not listed on the Giants inactive report that I was aware of as we came onto the air. So that's something to watch going forward because the Giants have some offensive talent here. Tyrone Tracy at running back, a rookie surprise. Devin Singletary, also in that backfield. He's a big play threat. We know that. Then you factor in Neighbors. Jalen Hyatt, the second-year wideout from Tennessee, a speedster, hasn't gotten much action this year, but he's a talent, as well as Wandale Robinson. So that Saints secondary is going to be tested, as is the run defense for New Orleans, who hasn't been able to catch a cold. Unlike you and I.
Right.
So New Orleans is going to be tested, no matter who is at quarterback. Drew Lock certainly not a name or a talent that's going to impress many people. But if you give any quarterback time, and the Saints have struggled to get to opposing quarterbacks this year, there are some weapons there that can that can make some chaos for the Giants. But New York, on the flip side, they're really beaten up on defense. They're missing one of their top cornerbacks in Deonte Banks, and three defensive linemen, including their leading sacker Dexter Lawrence, and edge rusher Azeez Olajeri is going to be out today. But having said that, the Giants still come in with Brian Burns, someone who we're very familiar with, covering for 5-6 years with the Carolina Panthers, as well as Kayvon Thibodeau. So those guys are going to be real tests for the Saints on the outside, with Talise Fuanga and Trevor Penning. I'm especially going to watch Penning's side, in passing situations, whether Burns or Thibodeau line up over to that side. Penning continues to struggle in pass protection. Vastly improved as a run blocker. So you got to give Trevor props for that. But he still has major issues, especially against athletic edge rushers and pass protection. So that's going to be one of the keys to that side of the ball today.
I think the one thing that going into this game prior to the injury report that I think a lot of Saints fans would have said is at least we have the tackles. They've been consistent. They've been good. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you have Thibodeau, who was a first-round pick just a few years ago. On one side, Brian Burns, who, man, there was a real argument at a point when he was in Carolina, I think going into that final year prior to it all kind of falling apart, where people were really considering Burns as one of the best up-and-coming edge rushers in the league, and then he had a terrible final year in Carolina, and is still getting his footing in New York, but a guy that, like you said, we're very familiar with, a guy that could absolutely torch the Saints today. But Bob, let's go ahead and pay some bills. While we're here and we're thinking about it, and I can actually speak a little bit. So with that, guys, remember that Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Think, will Alvin Kamara have higher than 65.5 rushing yards this week, or will Drew Lock throw lower than half an interception? Cook up some entries for a shot to win real cash prizes all football season long. You can go ahead and join over 5 million fans that are already playing on Underdog with their pick'em entry games. You can win money by making entries on your favorite players like we just talked about. All right, Bob. Let's see if we can kind of turn some things around with our luck when it comes to the pick'em entries for the year. I don't want to throw our record out there because it's been, well, not good. Let's see what I like this week and what you may like this week. I think it's always safe to go straight towards Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
The guy that we throw in a lot of these. The one that's sticking out to me, Kamara hasn't found the end zone the last few weeks.
No.
And in his career, he's had some good games against the New York Giants, including one up in the Meadowlands where he scampered for a long touchdown and ran through the tunnel. So I like Alvin higher than a rushing touchdown, specifically a rushing touchdown. But what are your thoughts?
I'm interested to see what other listings they have for not only Alvin but Kendra Miller too. But yeah, regarding the touchdown, as fantasy owners of Alvin Kamara over the last several years, and I have been one of them up until this year, yeah, will agonizingly attest to. Taysom Hill tends to bogart a lot of the red zone touches, especially right at the goal line from Alvin. Well, there's no Taysom Hill today. And while I wouldn't be surprised to see Jamal Williams get some action near the goal line, Alvin Kamara is this offense. Period and end of story. And he's going up against a New York run defense that ranks 29th in the league. Interestingly, there are two teams tied for the worst opposing rushing average per carry, and they're both playing in this game. New York and New Orleans are both tied for the worst in the league at giving up 5.1 yards per rush. So that's why, and I highlighted this in my key factors to the game piece this morning. Actually, just released about 20 minutes ago. Alvin Kamara and Kendra Miller are both the keys to both players to watch that I listed for this game. That's not to say I didn't list them that way because I expect a split backfield situation. This offense is Alvin Kamara's to run through, no doubt about that. But having Kendra Miller in the backfield as a legitimate rushing threat will make Kamara that much more effective as a receiver, thusly opening up the offense just a little bit. Does Underdog list Kamara as a half a total touchdown or rushing touchdown?
You can do either. The half a rushing touchdown has better payout than half of a touchdown, whether it be rushing or receiving.
Well, I mean, you know what? In week 14, we're not playing for the number one draft choice here. We're still in it to win. I'm thinking let's push our chips in the middle of the table. I'm going to go Alvin higher than a half a rushing touchdown today.
Half a rushing touchdown. All right. You wanted to see Kendra Miller. It's a guy that actually has some decent numbers here. So we have Kendra higher or lower than 27.5 rushing yards. Have Kendra higher than half of a touchdown. Higher or lower than 12.5 first half rushing yards. And then finally, higher or lower than 4.5 first quarter rushing yards. None of those really jump out at me as stuff that I like.
No, it's not that I hate them. But again, we both expect a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara early and often. It wouldn't surprise me to see Kendra get some touches. But there's a difference between a gamble and a dumb risk. So I'm like you. I don't necessarily hate those numbers, but I'm not sure if that's one of the boxes I want to check today for Kendra Miller.
All right, let's roll to a guy that we've picked each of the last 2 weeks, and that's MVS. Higher or lower than 36.5 receiving yards. He had 36 last week.
Yes, sir. He did. When our higher lower was 36.5.
Yep.
Man, I hate football.
Higher than 2.5 receptions. I think he's had at least 3 in each of the last 4. Where'd it go? Here we go. Higher or lower than. Dang, this app keeps moving around on me. Hold on.
Is it the cold medicine? You got shaky eyes and
it might be. I haven't taken anything yet today. Maybe I should. All right. Higher or lower than. Actually, there's no lower. Higher than half of a first quarter receiving yard. That's interesting. Will he essentially have a catch in the first quarter? You actually have that too. Will he have a catch in the first quarter? Higher than half of a first quarter reception. Higher or lower than 6.6 fantasy points. And then, of course, the touchdowns. So
the Bob and Brendan luck, if we went higher than what'd you say it was, half a receiving yard in the first quarter, uh, he'd have one catch. He'd have
For
one
0
catch for
yards.
5 yards, and then one catch where he wide receiver screen where he's nailed for a -6, so we'd lose out. That's just been our season.
Then we just take the first quarter reception. A higher than half of a first quarter reception.
What's the highest payout?
It's a little bit better to get a receiving yard in the first quarter. A little bit better payout.
Okay. Are
Not
you
by
talking
much.
just for first quarter or his total?
First quarter receiving yards is a 1.14 multiplier. Higher than half of a first quarter reception is a 1.09 multiplier.
Yeah, I mean, again, all joking aside, if he has a catch, it's going to be for yardage. I'd be tempted to go for yardage if you're focused on the first quarter numbers.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll take higher than half of a first quarter receiving yard. And now we'll have to pick someone on the other side. Neighbors scares me just because I don't really know how healthy he is, right?
I'm talking to Patricia Traina this week. She sounded, like Neighbors wasn't really in great shape to play, yet she expected him to play because of how competitive he is. But we're talking about Drew Lock at quarterback too. While quarterbacks have thrown for good yardage and a great completion percentage against the Saints, it's still Drew Lock, man. I'd be tempted more to look at the running backs for the Giants, specifically Tracy.
All right, here are Tyrone Tracy's numbers. Higher or lower than 64.5 rushing yards. Higher or lower than 13.5 receiving yards. Obviously, the touchdowns. Higher or lower than 15.5 first quarter rushing yards. Higher than 14.5 rushing attempts.
The game rushing yards in the first quarter or first half rushing yards?
64.5 for the game.
Okay.
And then first half is 32.5. First quarter is 15.5.
Okay. What's the better payout?
I think they're all equal.
Okay. The Saints haven't been able to stop anyone on the ground. Yeah, anytime the subject of the New Orleans running defense comes up, all I have to do is say the name Sean Tucker, and there's plenty of evidence outside of that. But I think unless this game gets out of hand quickly, and I can't see that happening, I think Tyrone Tracy is gonna have at least a solid day against the Saints, probably in the neighborhood of 65 to 75 yards on the ground minimum.
So we'll take the higher of 64.5 because we're feeling a little lucky today, perhaps. I'll give you the numbers for Derek Carr, and we'll close it out with our underdog picks of the week. Derek Carr, higher or lower than 217.5 passing yards, higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns, no lower option, higher or lower than 19.5 completions, higher than half of an interception, higher or lower than 108 first half passing yards. I don't absolutely love any of those. And the thing with Derek this year in particular is even those first 2 weeks when he was playing really good ball, he wasn't really throwing the ball for a lot of yards.
No.
Right? So yards is one that scares me a little bit. I
It
think
is. But I feel like Derek Carr's got a good game in him today. I don't know why. That's just a gut feeling. But like you said, we've seen Derek play some good games this year, but not throw for a lot of yards, mainly because in Clint Kubiak's system, he wants to establish the run first. He wants to beat people on the ground with the running game, thereby opening up the play action passes, the downfield throws. So while it wouldn't surprise me if Derek Carr achieved higher than what you say was 217 passing yards, I'm with you. Just after 12 games, Derek's played in 8 or 9 games. He's eclipsed that total once, I think, maybe twice. So it's not a smart bet. I agree with you.
How do you feel about him getting higher than 19 and a half completions?
I actually can see that. We mentioned earlier, that if Kendrick can establish himself as a viable threat out of the backfield, that allows Kamara to be more effective as a receiver. What we didn't talk about today, but we have mentioned it in the past, is Kendrick's a pretty good receiver too. Jawan, Foster, Moreau, have been, Carr favorites over the last few weeks. Of the Derek Carr lines that you read down, the higher lower completion, was probably the most solid.
And he has surpassed 19 and a half in each of the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
With 37 attempts last week, 27 attempts against Cleveland, and then he was 16 of 25 against Atlanta. I think we roll with it.
Sounds good.
At 19. So that is our final for today. It is Kamara higher than half of a rushing touchdown. MVS for higher than half of a first quarter receiving yard. Tyrone Tracy higher than 64.5 rushing yards. And Derek Carr higher than 19.5 completions. Bob, with our luck, we're flexing this, right? Like no
Yes.
Questions asked. We're flexing.
No questions asked at this point.
At this point, we're just doing it.
Yes, sir.
All right. We are a go. And we are locked in. All right, Bob. Well, with all of that, give me your keys to victory for the Saints today.
I'm going to piggyback off of my article that I released about 30 or 40 minutes ago. I'm looking at key players I already mentioned, Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller, and I mentioned why I had them listed together. The key matchup of the game for me, positional matchup, are the Saints tackles. Fuaga and Penning versus Thibodeau and Brian Burns. You know that the Saints like to establish off-tackle running plays, not necessarily to get outside the numbers, but if you establish those plays, then that opens up your cutback opportunities, which is critical, especially for Kamara. So that's my positional matchup of the game. My position of the game for the Saints to watch is linebacker. I know we mentioned the talent that the Giants have at receiver. So, the secondary, particularly Alontae Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry, they're going to have to play well. We know the struggles that New Orleans has had against the run, and rushing the passer. You need to get to Drew Lock, and you need to make this Giants team one-dimensional. So I know that falls on the defensive line. But the reason why I'm focused on the in-between of the defensive line secondary sandwich, the linebackers, is it's not that Demario Davis and Pete Werner have played badly. Actually, I think they played pretty darn good. But in recent weeks, especially, I have noticed, particularly against the Rams last week, because the defensive line has been so poor at maintaining their gap control and gap integrity, that's causing Davis and Werner to take gambles that they wouldn't necessarily take. They're both so good at anticipation and play diagnosis that's what I need these guys to do today. Yeah, they'll need that. They need a helping hand from the defensive line for sure. But that's why that's why we have not seen Davis in particular, but either Davis or Werner make any game-changing plays. They're making a lot of tackles. A lot of them are around the line of scrimmage. Very, very few of them are for tackles for loss or game-changing plays to grab momentum for your team, whether it's a hit, stop for a loss, a sack, anything like that. And that's more Davis's Davis's MO than it is Werner. Werner's just one of those solid lunch pail guys. But these guys need to step up today. And make some plays for this defense. Again, I recognize that the poor play of the defensive line has not allowed them to stand out. But when the Saints defense plays well, it's because Pete Werner is not making mistakes and is just as solid as they come. And Demario Davis is just flying all over the field. That's what kind of game that these two need to play today. So that's why they're my position to watch.
For me, you kind of already highlighted it, but I'm going to take the offensive tackles for the Saints, right? Like on paper, this is a game that the Saints should win, right? A lot of that's going to be protecting Derek Carr. It's also going to help us get to our higher of 19 and a half completions if he's able to stay clean. But I think it's going to be a big thing is kind of instill some confidence, maybe just the offensive line as a whole, right? Like you mentioned, this is the first time that starting unit, quote unquote, is going to be playing together since week 3, the third snap of week 3. Instill some confidence early, not just in them as a group playing together again, but you have a running back that hasn't played in a while in Kendre Miller. You have a quarterback in Derek Carr that is working with, I don't know what the opposite of the who's who is of wide receivers, but the who's who instead of the who's who of wide receivers. And then, of course, you have Alvin Kamara, who has had a really good year and deserves, I don't want to call it stat padding, but deserves to get in the end zone a couple times, maybe have another 100-yard rushing day, like play well.
With 106 yards on the ground, he's got his first 1,000-yard season in his career. That's amazing to consider, isn't it?
It is. But there was a lot of years of split backfield.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple years there where injuries played a key factor. Even if he played through them, it was very evident that he was nowhere close to 100% some of those years. 19 sticks out in my brain. I think it was 19. The Teddy Bridgewater year, right? Where Kamara was clearly not 100%.
Yeah.
But no, I think, stopping Thibodeau and Burns, keeping Carr clean, and then just creating running lanes for the Saints offense. Like you said, the Giants have some offensive weapons. They're playing with a guy in Drew Lock who never really lived up to the expectations that people had for him. But the Giants defense is really bad. This is a really good opportunity for the offense to find some rhythm, find a groove, and maybe, just maybe, look a little bit more like they did the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm not saying they're going to drop 40, but look like a competent offensive football team, which they've actually done a little bit better of lately. But this is a real good opportunity to kind of blow it open a little bit, get some points up on the board, and have fun, even though I don't know what the weather is in New York right now, or I guess New Jersey right now. Let's see, 45 degrees. That's not bad. 45 is not bad.
Yeah.
So, go have some fun. It's a little chilly, but nothing that a few touchdowns can't help. So with that, Bob, you've had some articles come out. People got about an hour before kickoff. Where can people catch up with you and your work as they are continuing to get ready with their snacks and their food for the 1 o'clock kickoff?
Folks, you can catch up with all the articles that we've had previewing this game, not only mine, but also John Hendricks. You catch those over at the Saints News Network or the SI.com team page for the New Orleans Saints. I also post all of my articles on my personal media, social media. That's Bob Rose on Facebook and at Bobby R 2613. And please, if you aren't already doing so, give our Bayou Blitz Facebook group a follow and subscribe to our Bayou Blitz YouTube page too. We don't mention that enough. There's obviously not a fee to do so. But it allows you to explore any of Brendan and I's past shows. And we've had some terrific guests recently. Pierre Thomas, Lance Moore, Michael Lewis, who we're working to reschedule for a full episode. Delvin Bro, Tyrone Hughes, Courtney Roby. The reason I mentioned those names specifically, and a couple of our friends behind us, Jim Everett and Quinn Early, longtime friends of the show too. But the reason I mentioned those names specifically is because they are going to be part of the Original Go Black and Gold charity fan cruise, which is going to be held March 27th through the 31st out of the port of New Orleans. We talk about it every single week because Brendan and I are so proud to be part of the promotion for this event, which benefits the American Cancer Society and has heavy involvement in the ultimate fan experience from all the Saints greats, all the Saints Hall of Famers that I already mentioned. We're going to be have already had those guys on the show. We're going to circle back around, through the latter stages of the holiday, and into the new year to get them back on the show. So check out our past interviews with them. Check out the Bayou Blitz Facebook page for the promotion of the Original Go Black and Gold charity fan cruise, dates, promotional information, donation opportunities, et cetera, et cetera.
For myself, you can follow me virtually everywhere at BT Boylan. Very excited about the fan cruise. Jealous that you're going to get the opportunity to hang out and go, and I'm not. But I know you're going to have a great time. You're going to represent not just us well, but everything the event is about. Is going to be represented very well by you and all the guys that you previously mentioned. Very excited to continue the promotion of it, and excited for some of you to hop on board, hang out with some absolute Saints legends, and also for some of you get to meet Bob face to face for the first time. I mean, that's pretty cool. That probably goes up there with the Saints Hall of Famers, right?
While I appreciate the compliment, during the Q&A sessions, I'm really not sure who is going to be asking me any questions other than maybe who are you and why are you up there with those guys, which I will accept and answer to the best of my ability.
And you'll be like, I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just kidding. All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoy the game. Like Bob said, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube page. Please go, and it helps a ton. Even if you don't listen to us audio-wise on your drive-in via Spotify, via Apple Podcasts, via wherever you get your pods. If you are watching live every week, we really appreciate it. But if you'll go to Spotify or Apple and just subscribe, it helps the algorithm. It helps get our names out a little bit more to other people. So please go ahead.
Well, Brendan might be able to afford to go on a cruise too instead of rowing behind us on that canoe.
Oh, I didn't know that I was doing that. How about that?
I forgot to tell you.
You just bought like a really long rope. You're just going to tie it, and I'm just going to be sitting in like a paddle boat that doesn't have to paddle because I'm getting pulled by the cruise ship. Great. That'll be a wonderful photo. It'll be a wonderful photo to hang up on the wall. But please go ahead and do that, guys. And Bob and I will be back Thursday this week for a live show because I will be traveling home. But we also have a post-game show for you guys, and that'll be uploaded to Spotify, Apple Pods, and wherever you get your podcast. So until you hear our wonderful voices again tomorrow morning, hopefully with an extravaganza episode of the Bayou Blitz podcast. Again, that's Bob Rose. I'm Brendan Boylan. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you on the other side. Who dat?